because I don't believe the FBI is politicized. There never ever was. In my 20 years at FBI Newark, did anyone ever discuss, okay, we need to support this political party. We need to support this political party. We need to go after this political party. It never happened. And anybody that says that it did happen are liars. And I'll say it to you straight to your face. Anybody that says, well, we were told that this, well, you were a liar, because it never was says, maybe you had a conversation with one other agent, but nobody in FBI Newark chain of command, all the way up to the SAC, ever said it was the exact opposite. We had what was called hatch training. Okay, the Hatch Act prohibits agents from espousing and supporting a political party as an FBI agent. So in other words, you can't have, pro-Trump bumper sticker on your car. We were even told, hey, listen, if the neighborhood knows you're an FBI agent, you can't have a political sign in your yard, because that's a violation of the Hatch Act. You're a member of the government showing support for a party. One of the problems here in this country is people think so short-sighted. They think short-sighted, right here, right in front of them. You don't understand, and there's no conversation. Listen, there's a lot of people which I disagree with in this country, and I applaud that. People, you want to disagree with me? Good. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about that. You want to defund the police? Sure, let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it, and you can tell me, how does taking away money from law enforcement benefit you? Well, they shouldn't have their weapons and guns. Okay, but you're also taking away from their training, which is what you want. You want them to be better trained officers, and if you take away their training, they will be less trained. You're going to get a worse caliber officer. Not to mention, you also have officers that are coming in because you're defunding them. They're going to get less pay. You're going to get a lower quality of applicant. So explain to me how that is better for the situation.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. We're a leader-to-leader focused podcast that's trying to bring you as much inspiration and impact as possible. And today will be no different. We got our guest, Daniel Brunner, on the show, calling in from Montana. And excited for that opportunity to speak with him. He spent the large part of his career with the FBI, serving our country, serving us in the populace, and has made an amazing transition into the entrepreneurial world. So, Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Josh. Appreciate it.
I have absolutely excited. And what I'm actually really excited about is you've already smiled a couple times, and my two interactions with street FBI people, they didn't smile once. So I know we're already, well, I should explain that too. I wasn't in trouble. I got put down as a reference twice, once by a friend that was going to work for a congressman. And the second time was a friend and client of mine that was interviewing for ATF at that time. And evidently, FBI is involved with both of those. So those were the two times I had interactions with FBI street officers.
Well, we have a very bad reputation on TV, and I tell most people, say, listen, what you see on TV, that's not who we are. We don't walk around with earpieces and raid jackets. I think I wore my raid jacket in 20 years, I think like 2 or 3 times tops. So we don't walk around with shirts and ties and suits and everything. And so everything you see in TV, that's Hollywood. So, but it's a lot of fun. It was fun. It was 20 years.
What's interesting, though, is Hollywood spins a lot of narratives, not just for the FBI, but with everything. And a lot of times people take that as that's what it is. And
yeah, and I get it. And I totally get it, because so I spent 20 years as a street agent investigating a lot of bad gangs and cartels that are out there, and all of it in New Jersey. A lot of my time, I'd say 85 to 90% of my time was behind the desk at the computer, just punching away. And only 10% was the fun run and gun, hitting doors and all the other stuff. So I get it. Hollywood only has 1 hour to push in and make it look all flashy, and everybody's got a glass office, and everybody's got great raid jackets and everything. So I get it. It's got to be Hollywood to sell. Nobody would want to see what it really is behind the scenes.
Just typing out a computer, that wouldn't sell. Absolutely. No. All right. Well, you gave us a little bit of your background, but I know you had a lot of experience with some of the most dangerous gangs and a lot of other work. So before we get into some of the more, I don't know, we'll call it more glamorous stuff. Talk about some of the dirty stuff that you had to deal with throughout our country as you're experiencing the 20 years in the FBI.
Well, listen, I spent so before the FBI, I was in the Navy for 9 years. I was enlisted from 94 till '02. And I spent 5 of those years underway when the fleet, I was stationed down in Mayport, Florida on a FFG, on a fast frigate. So I spent a lot of years overseas. I was in Desert Shield off the coast of Iraq. And, some of those are not glamorous. It wasn't glamorous times. I was an operations specialist enlisted. So, working my way up, trying to, figure out my way. And, I didn't finish college, out of Syracuse. I didn't finish my time. So I had to go into the military to really start, learning myself. And then after 9/11, that's when I started to, finish my degree while I was at Annapolis as an instructor at the Naval Academy, and then started to finish my bachelor's degree. And at which point, right after 9/11, the FBI came recruiting at the Naval Academy. I was, as a lowly, enlisted E6, and, I'm in a room full of commanders, lieutenant commanders, Navy SEALs, pilots, F-14, everything like that. And I was like, I don't stand a chance. Well, they were saying that they need people who speak other languages. So I said, okay, I speak Spanish. I'm sure you have plenty of those. Nope, they don't. So one
Hmm.
year, I took the phase 1 exam on September 11th, 2002, and I was admitted to FBI Academy September 7th, 2003. So from there, you just become a lowly agent. You work your way up, and it was, I was in the streets of Newark, New Jersey, for my first office. And you just you're the new guy. You're the bottom of the totem pole. So, the FBI is very good at as it's growing over the years, to what it is become today, to what it was from the '80s to now. It's constantly growing and constantly learning, and which can both be good and bad. There's a lot of administrative things that are burdened upon you, which, they need to make sure that you are aware of the training and make sure you're aware of this. So there's a lot of virtual academy training to make sure the agents are aware of the rules and regulations that the Department of Justice puts upon its agents and the different agencies that fall under the DOJ. So there's a lot of tough stuff out there for, a lot of the street agents, a lot of roadblocks, that make a street agent's life difficult, which I can, cover later on in our conversation. But it's a good road. I mean, you get to be a special agent for the FBI. I mean, I was one of, out of 52,000 that applied, I was one of 826 my year. So, I consider myself very fortunate to be amongst, really good people at the Bureau. There were a lot of bad people. No, I would say a lot of bad people. There were some bad people that just, they obviously have been moved on to other things, just like any other organization. There's
Yeah,
good
that
people, there's
exists
bad.
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That happens every organization. So you can't expect perfection. You're an FBI agent, you do a backflip in a disco, while you're dancing, and then your Glock 23 falls out and it goes off and he gets fired. So just like that. But like I said, there's good and there's bad. But overall, there's no doubt I wouldn't change one thing that I did in my course of my career. I am where I am today in Montana with my wife and my 2 kids. If it was because of my course in Newark, and I loved it, and it
Yeah.
was fantastic work.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for your service to our country. Uh, Secondly, I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to ask someone this. What was tougher, going through training for the military or going through training for the FBI?
See, those were two different ones. First of all, listen, to my Marine Corps brothers and Army brothers, there's no way that the Navy boot camp compares to those two. Those two boot camps are completely alike. I put it this way, that's a great question. At my age, when I was 21 years old, I was 21 when I entered boot camp in the Navy at Great Lakes. It, to me, was a new challenge. I had never been challenged as a 21-year-old and 20-year-old. I had never been put through the attention to detail. Every piece of clothes, every piece of underwear, everything had to be exactly for the Navy standards. Physical wise, it was fine. It pushed me. I was, 21 years old. I was in pretty good shape. So it pushed me. When I went to the FBI Academy, I had looked, like when we talked about Hollywood, I had created this mystique. This is going to be impossible. They're going to try and wash me out. And it was just this huge monster that was in front of me. And it really physically, that was nothing. Physical, it was nothing. For me, it was the mental. It was the mentally going, okay, they want you to pass. They want you to pass. They want you to, they just spent $100,000 to get you through the system, to get your clearance, to get you through the application process. They want you to pass. They don't want to fail you, or they don't want to flush you out. So they want you to pass. So it was just studies, making sure that you prepared for it. You're on the firing, when they're in the firing line, you didn't make a mistake, you followed the rules, and you get through. I mean, as soon as you get the academy, there's some reason that they got you there because they saw something in you. You're, the 1% of 1%. So for me, it was just a mental battle. And I would say between the two, if I had to compare the two, I would say the FBI Academy was more challenging because it was a mental battle than the Navy, which was really just a physical battle.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. As you were telling your story, I'm like, I don't think I've had the opportunity to ask this question. So I'm going to take that opportunity.
Right.
So fast forward, you have to, or get to, whichever you want to choose here, deal with some of the most dangerous cartels in the world and researching them, tracking them, all that different things. So in MS-13, which was still one of the most dangerous cartels in the world, gangs in the world, if you will. It's getting a lot of buzz now because Trump has brought their names up, but it's been around for a long time and been in the States for a long time, decades. And so through that, what have you learned about how they're operating now from moving from countries south of us, whether it be Mexico or their country of origin, to the U.S., and what can you shed light on for us and how that's actually impacting Americans today?
Well, here's the thing is I think that MS-13, I chased MS-13 all around the world for 12 of my 20 years. And I was fortunate enough to be part of a group called Joint Task Force Vulcan, which was brought together under the Trump administration by AG Barr. And they wanted to go after, so each FBI division is responsible for federal crimes inside their AOR, inside their area of responsibility. So my responsibility was New Jersey, and I was the only MS-13 agent for the FBI in New Jersey. And then you connected with other MS-13 agents across the country. But I was pretty good at my job. So the Attorney General brought together a whole bunch of different AUSAs, assistant U.S. attorneys, and they formed this task force to go after MS-13 leadership that was in El Salvador. I was one of 3 agents selected to join this task force. So from 2019 all the way to the end of my career, I was chasing both MS-13 in New Jersey and MS-13 in Mexico. And I got to see the growth of MS-13 over the years. And I got to see also comparing it to other criminal organizations. MS-13, and President Trump is absolutely right. That is a very dangerous organization. But what they have become today from their origin in the 80s, and their origin in Los Angeles in 1980. They grew over the years. They've become they were I wouldn't say out of control, but they were a very, very powerful gang in the mid 2000s to 2015, to where they shifted their area of operations. Before, they had their middle management and their ground troops here in the United States. Then we started hitting them hard, and so they moved their middle management to Mexico, and then they've partnered up with the cartels. But the thing about MS-13 is they remained almost lower level tier when you look at the entire spectrum of gangs and look at criminal organizations. So you have a Dominican gang called the Trinitarios.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, mostly in the Northeast, New York City, New Jersey, very, very powerful organization. I've always looked at them before, as I was in my tail end of my career, I always looked at the Trinitarios as more of a dangerous organization than MS-13 and to the United States, to the citizens of the US. And here's why. Because the Trinitarios were in a lot of different areas. They were in the grandma scam, they were defrauding, they were narcotics, they were in weapons. But the difference is MS-13 was getting a lot of the news because of President Trump and because of the violence of their actions, butchering in Long Island 4 young men, and they were just butchered and massacred and with machetes. It looks horrible, but like the media says, if it bleeds, it leads. But the Trinitarios are doing more damage to the society. They're stealing more money from our grandparents. They're pushing more narcotics. Now, our current threat, I look at is without a doubt, is the new gang from Venezuela, Tren de Aragua, TDA. Without a doubt, the largest danger to this, to our country and to our citizens, much worse than MS-13, because MS-13, they're more of a neighborhood gang. They communicate with leadership in El Salvador and Mexico to how control their block, their 1 to 2 blocks in Union City, in West New York, in Virginia, North Carolina, lots of different locations, but they're small. TDA has a control, and the amount of control they've been able to exert in such a short period of time, because they've only been in this country for less than a year, is astounding. And a lot of people, you have the example of what happened in Aurora, Colorado, where they're taking over different apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's like, wow, look at they took over the apartment building. That's nothing new. They were doing that 2 years ago in Chile, Peru, Colombia. They were doing all those things, and then they brought that experience here to the United States. And now the media is hyping it up, which we should be talking about them. We need to bring that out into the light because they're not a gang. I refuse to call TDA a gang. They are a transnational criminal organization because they are organized, they are communicating, they have a supply lines, and they are causing a lot of damage to this country, from narcotics to smuggling to human trafficking to prostitution. You name it, they're here to take advantage of us. And a lot of it is due to the border situation over the last 3 years.
No, that's fascinating. So being a leadership coach, I always talk about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits Highly Effective. So I think about begin with the end in mind. What is their goal, or what is their end in mind here in the U.S.?
I think their goal is just to make much money and commit crime. And excuse me, I think their end goal is just like any other criminal organization, to make money, to support their operations. I don't think their goal is to overthrow the government. I don't think their goal is to kill people. I think they're a criminal organization. If anybody gets in their way, they will either hurt you or kill you. 12-year-old girl in Texas, in Houston, Texas, a few days ago, befriended 2 members of TDA. Unfortunately, she ended up, getting kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and tied up, bound, and murdered because she just met the wrong guys at the wrong time. And, I suppose she put up a fight and they weren't going to take that. The police officers in New York City last year in Times Square, those officers were jumped by Venezuelan nationals who supposedly are members of Tren de Aragua, TDA. They weren't going to put up with anybody telling them no, so that they beat up the cops. It just shows you. And then recently, the TDA leadership put out a green light on a police officer, members of TDA, go ahead and murder a member of law enforcement. It goes to society. It looks at, they're looking at, over the last 5 to 10 years and how law enforcement has been looked at, and by community, how, just common people here in the United States, U.S. citizens, don't respect law enforcement anymore. They don't back the blue anymore. It's just, hey, I'm going to be disobedient. I'm going to yell at them and, fuck the police type of situation. So these TDA members are encompassing that attitude, and they're just moving forward.
So you're saying the defund the police narrative didn't help the situation?
I don't see, and here's the thing, that is the defund the police situation never, everybody, so the problem, one of the problems here in this country is people think so short-sighted. They think short-sighted, right here, right in front of them. You don't understand, and there's no conversation. Listen, there's a lot of people which I disagree with in this country, and I applaud that. People, you want to disagree with me? Good. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about that. You want to defund the police? Sure, let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it, and you can tell me, how does taking away money from law enforcement benefit you? Well, there's, they shouldn't have their weapons and guns. Okay, but you're also taking away from their training, which is what you want. You want them to be better trained officers. And if you take away their training, they will be less trained. You're going to get a worse caliber officer. Not to mention, you also have officers that are coming in because you're defunding them. They're going to get less pay. You're going to get a lower quality of applicant. So explain to me how that is better for the situation. And I'd love to, like I said, I'd enjoy having a conversation about that, because it makes no sense to me.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, we should be paying our teachers, we should be paying our police officers more, because then we'll get better, our best of our best wanting to pursue that career.
Right.
Because teachers have a impossible job. Police officers have an impossible job. And we pay them some of the least in society comparatively. And so
FBI agents, like in my year, I think it was about 52,000 that applied. And this was 2 years after 9/11. So incredibly peaked. They were pumping through 50 agents every 2 weeks. I believe that the applicants last year or two, the number of applicants was 20 to 22,000. So you now you go
less than
from
half.
here to a pool of here. You still have to maintain the number of 13, 14,000 special agents in the FBI. Still have to maintain that. But you now have this little of a pool. I can't help but correlate that to lack of respect, lack of funding, the whole defund the police type of situation. So it's just getting harder out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had our former chief of police in Madison on my podcast a number of years ago, and that was right after. Oh gosh, that would have been right after like the George Floyd situation, and so the defund of the police narrative was very high then, and we were talking through some of the demands of that movement, and I went and asked Chief Cavall about all that, and he goes, "What's interesting, Josh? Here in Madison, at least, we do all of those things. We check all of those boxes."
Yep.
And so, like, to your point there, if they defund the police, at least here in Madison, I can't speak for all departments, but Chief Cavall was highly informative in that to say, if you defund the police, they may have to remove the mental health training. They may have to remove some of the other pieces of that list that they were demanding from defund the police. And so you can't have both sides. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
I find that a lot of these people who are demanding the defund the police have never spent a day out on the streets. They don't know what it's like. They're demanding, social workers need to go out there and address a situation. Or listen, there are mental health situations, people with mental health problems. Absolutely agree that we need to train our officers, equip them better to deal with somebody who has mental health issues. But if that person who has mental health issues is carrying a knife or another gun, there's no other recourse that officer, and there's no police officer I know that wants to kill people. I'm sure there are people that will disagree with me, but I find it hard to believe that there's any police officer that's out there says, I want to kill somebody today. They don't want to draw their gun. They don't want to shoot somebody. But if it's between the police officer's life and the person who's carrying a knife, you have 21 feet to make a decision. That is not going to be a very difficult decision to make. And as the same thing, my deadly force policy was very well clear stated. We spent a lot of time training on the deadly force policy at the FBI, knowing exactly what's a shoot and no shoot situation. So that training has to be there. That training costs money. Defunding the police will only harm the citizens that we're meant to protect. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So let's stick on this. So you brought up immigration a little bit and the problem at the border. Obviously, that's where this Venezuelan gang came in through, and some of the other gangs, or you call them a criminal organization. So they've infiltrated that. The number that they've given us is 10 million. So I think that the number is far north of that, because anytime I get stats from our government, I just assume that it's higher. Maybe that's a false assumption, but that's 10 million that they can track. That you got to imagine there's a percentage that's not tracked. So that being said, so we have concerned American citizens. These people are getting flown to all different states throughout the country, not properly vetted. What can the American citizen do besides vote? How do they protect themselves? How do they stay aware? Me with 3 daughters and a son, a 13-year-old daughter that, you bring up that 12-year-old and that's just horrific. How can we go about protecting our families?
Listen, what I tell people in my line of work, what I do now is security consulting, and I get this question a lot. What can I do? And what I tell people is, listen, educate yourself. And where I find that there's a big black spot, I just taught a few weeks ago here in Montana, And I was teaching people about different frauds, different crimes utilizing artificial intelligence. And I think that, and I found that so many people aren't aware of different types of ways they can get scammed, and different crimes that are being committed. So my best way is telling people, says educate yourself. Don't live in a bubble saying my neighborhood is safe. Here in Bozeman, Montana, this is a beautiful part of the country. We moved up here last year following my retirement, and because I wanted to be closer to winter, more snow, and I wanted to give my kids a better opportunity to grow up in the outdoor environment. And for the most part, up until 2019, a lot of people, really didn't know about Bozeman. So a lot of people lived here with the, oh, I don't have to lock my front door type of attitude. And it was a very friendly neighborhood, very friendly community. But when COVID hit, Bozeman was put on the map. A lot of people flocked up here from California, Texas, from the South, and they relocated here. And along with that comes other forces, people trying to take advantage, cartels, Sinaloa, CJNG, they're up here. I know that there's numerous gangs. TDA is supposedly up here as well. So there's different organizations looking to take advantage. I tell people saying, listen, the more you are aware, if you're walking down the street, being aware of your surroundings, keep yourself aware, create, read, different types of situations. I put out a blog every Tuesday and Thursday on Substack, and I talk about, hey, these are different types of scams out there. These are different cyber awareness. This is something that you should look for. Hey, you have children, maybe you should, have this type of app. Do I consider myself a cyber expert? No, but I know a lot of people that do, and I educate myself. Create the hardened, circle around you. Make it as difficult as possible for individuals like that to, not get close to you, or just make yourself a hard target. And it's very difficult to put that to someone who's never been in the environment that I lived in for 20 years
Yeah.
and understand. For me, it's easy. I'm used to it. But for someone that's in marketing or working for JP Morgan, my wife worked for a family office in New York City. She worked for a family office for 16 years. And I started showing her and revealing to her, and we just met 12 years ago, and I started telling her about the different things that I see on a regular basis. She lived in her world in New York City, working on Park Avenue. So when I started opening her eyes to it, it was a little bit of a shock. So
Yeah.
it's understandable that it's a little different. It's a little shocking, because from her family office, she would handle, billions of dollars being the trading desk manager. So she wasn't used to what I'm used to. So it's a little bit difficult to create that, quickly. It's just a matter of just keep absorbing information.
Yep. So a lot of people get their information from the news, and that's typically not proper information. So when you say educate yourself, where would you say is the best places for people to educate themselves?
Well, selfishly speaking, I'll say, you can subscribe to my Substack. Brunner Sierra Group is my Substack, my Substack page, Brunner Sierra Group .substack.app. And like I said, I put out a newsletter talking about different types of crimes that the people see. I'm not talking about, high level. So I'll talk about everything from MS-13 to Trinitarios to TDA to cyber crimes, and it's just absorbing. I think, the media is difficult at best to discuss, whether it be Fox News or CNN or NBC or Reuters. It's difficult to find what is the truth. And because both sides have their agenda and they're selling it to their people. So I read a lot of them. I'm on CNN, I'm on Fox News. As a commentator, I provide, on-air commentary to when there's a situation. And it's finding the middle, finding the middle. Fox News has their agenda, what they have to sell it for. CNN has their agenda to what they're selling it to. And both of them don't say the truth. Both of them want to say. So I've tried to find the middle and going, okay, between the two, this is most likely. And then it's just not rely solely on one source. It's multiple sources.
No, that is great advice. And you had a lot in there, from finding your network and your people around you, and making sure you're aware of your surroundings. A lot of women get attacked in parking lots when they're tending to a child or whatever it may be. You touched on the elderly piece real briefly with these gangs. I dealt with, I had a client when I was back in financial advisory world. There was an attorney for the DFI here in the state of Wisconsin. For those who don't know, DFI is Department of Financial Institutions. Her sole job was to prosecute cases of exploiting people essentially for their money. And every time I went to visit her at her office, she had a stack so high on her desk of cases, and there was 2 attorneys working, so very low budget, and they couldn't handle all the cases that they had. So we just hear of Bernie Madoff, but there's Ponzi schemes going on all the time, everywhere, and a lot of it is through the elder abuse. With the advent of AI and people being able to, me being on a podcast, you being on this podcast, them being able to rip our voices at this point,
Yep.
At any point, and that's more sophisticated than the job that they've been doing, ripping off elderly for a long time. It's only going to get worse. How do we go about protecting our parents and grandparents?
See, that's a tough one because AI has become such a revolution in the evolution of AI over just the last year alone. You know, the jump that platforms like ChatGPT and PIMIze, the expansion is exponential. The jump from ChatGPT 4.0 to ChatGPT 1, the newest version, which is out there, is so exponential from ChatGPT 3 to ChatGPT 4, and then ChatGPT 4 to ChatGPT, what it is now, is massive jump. So it's gaining speed, and it's almost outrunning us. The ability of the common man, you know, on the streets to understand it and wrap their head around it, because by the time they've wrapped their head and understood, you know, listen, the computer guys, they're understanding this, but that's a small percentage of, you know, we're 98% of the rest of the world doesn't understand computing and coding and AI. The rest of us, where by the time we wrap our heads around what ChatGPT is, they're already working on the next version, 2 versions ahead of us. So it's difficult to say that because, like you said, this conversation alone will get posted on YouTube, podcasts, and all the other, you know, platforms. And all they need is 3 to 5 seconds of our conversation. And someone could take my voice, call my mom, and tell my mom, hey, I'm in jail. I need you to, you know, a guy's going to come by the house and pick up $20,000 for lawyer fees. And she could fall for that because she'll hear my voice speaking to her and she will be convinced that is me. People can call banks now and they call for voice verification. The AI version of me can verify bank computers, you know, bank and computer banks. They're hearing the AI voice, but they're hearing our voice, my voice, and they're being sold. I mean, it's clear it's been happening where, you know, a bank will you know, open access to somebody who's got nefarious means. Hell, there was a $25 million scam in China, which happened a few months ago, where an individual was contacted and said, hey, listen, we need you on the phone with the CFO and the rest of the board, his finance team. Be on the call in 10 minutes. He jumps on the video call in the room. He sees the entire financial team, the CFO at the head of the table, and the entire financial team sitting there. They're all talking to him and they say, we need to move $25 million. We need to move. He's like, okay, that sounds weird, but I'm talking to you guys. Moves $25 million, poof, it's gone. Turned out he was talking to an entire room of AI. The entire room was fake. All of it was fake. But he got taken for $25 million because he was convinced, he was sure that was the CFO and the rest of the team. So these are just scams that are going to happen and continue happening and continue evolving. Like I said, the grandma scam was the easiest one, where, you know, someone would get on the phone and pretend to be a lawyer and say, hey, your son is here, he's in jail. Now they don't need that anymore. A computer can do that. So it's become easier, much, much easier to be a criminal these days. And it's the problem. One of the problems is with law enforcement is when we were at the FBI, and it is still today and still law enforcement, they're restricted to certain tools that they can utilize. We can't just go out on the open market and say, I'll take this. The FBI has to vet the tool, buy the tool, And by the time the proposal to the vetting to the purchasing of the tool, the next version's already moved on. So the FBI, we were constantly trying to keep up with the criminal market, but we were always 2 steps behind.
Yeah.
So it's difficult in law enforcement these days, but it's, the person like you and I, it's listening to podcasts, listening, reading, educating yourself, which is difficult for some people these days. They're working, they're busy, they got their lives. I've got 8-year-old twins. There's a million things in the air, and the last thing you need to do is sit down for an hour and a half podcast. But there's no magic bullet to clear it all. But it's
Well,
difficult.
let me help there a little bit. You have drive time. If you're walking or working out, you have that time. Those are the times I listen, right? So if I can do it with 4 busy kids, running a couple different businesses, you have time to do it too. It's making time to do it and learning and educating yourself. So
Absolutely.
I'll speak to those that you're just trying to give an excuse to real quick. So this is random, but this is how my ADD mind works. So every school shooter, or even the shooter at President Trump, attempted assassin, it always comes out within a week that the FBI has been tracking this person for a year, 2 years, whatever it may be. Why is it that the FBI or another organization doesn't act before the act happens?
Well, that's easy. I mean, I first of all, I don't think the FBI, and I'm speaking, and I don't think the FBI was tracking him and I'm using the example of the shooter in Butler, Pennsylvania. I think the FBI visited him. He was in the FBI database. And then I think individuals who want to make a situation out of it call it, oh, the FBI was tracking him when they just interviewed him, and I've seen this and I can speak to this, and I've seen it numerous times where a story will be, well, he was interviewed a year or 2 ago. Okay, well and then somebody takes that and puts it on Twitter. Oh, the FBI was watching him for the last 2 years. Well, that's not true. We saw him 2 years ago. We interviewed him, but you can't. What do you want to charge him with? Especially with in the Butler shooting or okay, so he was visited by local law enforcement, and the father and the son were interviewed. But what can you do? You want to say, listen. So I look at it, there's so much that can be done by law enforcement to, hey, we saw him on our radar. Yes, individuals who are troubled are most likely going to be on law enforcement radar before the event for which they've done. I knew lots of subjects in my investigations who I was tracking before I arrested them, before they were even charged, because I received information. But I can't arrest them until they violated a crime. So the Butler PA shooter, I look at it, the reason why why President Trump was almost assassinated that day was that it was a failure by the Secret Service, 100%.
Yep.
That was the Secret Service failure. And it wasn't an intentional operation. It wasn't a false flag operation. I don't believe any of those conspiracy theories at all. I look at the situation just like you said. He was an individual who was troubled, very much like school shooters, very much like the mass shooters, who had very trouble fitting in society. And for whatever reason, he found it his mission to assassinate President Trump. Fortunately, he failed and he was taken out by the snipers. But how did he get to that point? And there were failures of communication by the Secret Service. There was failure of imagination by the Secret Service. There's complacency by the Secret Service. All these things which I was saying in days following and which have then been proven by the investigation by Congress, which was failure of communication, failure in the command post, failure to communicate with local law enforcement, and failure of the Secret Services to bring in the local law enforcement and augment their forces. Instead of what they did was just push them off to the side, say, okay, you guys just man the gates over there. We'll take care of the important stuff. Well, that right there was the failure to think of, outside the box. So that to me is, people saying, well, we should have arrested him. For what? People saying, well, we should have arrested him. I'd like to know what your experience is in law enforcement. Love to know what your experience is and what would we have arrested him for? Well, he was thinking of, okay, so now we're arresting people on their thoughts. So that's a very, very difficult conversation to have. And, like I said, you can't arrest somebody until they violated a crime that can be articulable in whatever federal, state, or local law enforcement.
Yeah, that's a really good point because we get into a real slippery slope if we're going to arrest people on thoughts and thinking about doing something in that regard,
Right.
because and it goes back to the stem root of a lot of our problems in America, which is mental health, and creating a culture that supports and actually fosters greatness instead of this divide and conquer, beat down economically, mentally, emotionally society that we've created. So the only thing I had on that I wouldn't say it's pushback, but I don't understand why they lie to us afterwards. Like saying that, for instance, and this was Secret Service or head of the Secret Service at that point, but saying that the roof was too slopey.
Yeah, and clearly what happened the very next day. That was one of the worst congressional hearings I've ever seen in my entire life, and I've watched a lot of them. Her answers, and I'm watching them, and it hurt me. It hurt me. I'm sitting here going, what is she thinking? No comment. I can't discuss that at this time. In today's society and communication and how it works, you have to, and that's why when you run a crisis manager, I was a crisis management coordinator, CMC for Newark Division. One of the first things they tell you is you have to put out immediately. You have to put out, even if it's a basic press conference, and their failure, the Secret Service's failure to be at that first press conference was immediately the precipice, the first domino in just falling until she was removed. The fact that she was like, well, oh, the slope was too high. Everyone knew that, and I don't know why. You know what? That's a question that you have to ask her and saying, why would you say that? And why would you so clearly knowing if you just even look at a photograph that the Secret Service members, snipers, the CS teams, the counter sniper teams were on a slope much harder than what the shooter was. You're saying, okay, but that's too steep. She did not prep for that. She was not trained for that. And she wasn't prepared. She clearly was out of her element. And it was somebody who should not have been the director of the Secret Service. For me, that showed a systemic problem and what created the situation at Butler, which was ultimately like just a failure of imagination. There hadn't been an attempt on a president since President Reagan,
Yeah.
which had been successful. And of course, there have been plenty of situations with the Secret Service has disrupted, in which we don't know about. And the complacency that was taking place at the Secret Service clearly showed with her and not knowing the facts. And that was days after the shooting. You should have gotten a report from your SAC, from your special agent in charge of the division right there. Hey, give me the nuts and bolts. And why she didn't ask, well, why didn't we have somebody on that roof? And I guarantee you the answer she was not given was, well, it's too steep. So whatever reason she said that, I don't know. But it wasn't the SAC did not say, or the snipers didn't say, well, that's too steep for us.
Yeah.
So
Well, it was fun. I think there's obviously a terrible situation, and I would have been pissed if it was either candidate that's getting shot at because that doesn't belong in our country. That being said, like roofers disproved that like immediately. They came out and said, "Yeah, that's a 1/10 slope." And this week, when he was back in Butler with over 100,000 people there were snipers on that exact roof.
yeah,
So
no, I saw those memes.
just hilarious. So real quick before we get into entrepreneurship, what do you think the overall government agencies are doing well, and where do they need improvement as far as the government as a whole? I mean, we talked a little bit before we were on camera how there's some, the DOJ or upper levels of management may have some, we say speculatively, may have some political motivations. But overall trust with law enforcement, with three-letter agencies, seems to be broken in society right now. And we already talked about how that can be a very bad thing. But where do you think things are going right? And where do you think things are really going wrong?
Well, what I think what's going right is the street agents. The guys who work these cases, they put it in front of them, in enforcing the law. You can see, from the examples of where I completely disagree with the rights agenda, where it's saying, well, the FBI is weaponized, and the FBI is not weaponized. The FBI looks at a violation, and they can't. And a lot of people who are not FBI agents, but there are FBI agents I know, and I'm not going to mention them by name, who are saying that the FBI is weaponized, but they're saying that only to get clicks on certain networks. And they've irked a lot of FBI agents, including myself, who are still active, and they don't appreciate comments that he is making only for clicks. But the FBI agents that are out there on the streets working, the supervisory special agents looking over the squads, the case agents, they're busting their butts. They're doing the right thing. They're looking in front of them. An example perfect is, okay, so yes, you think that the DOJ is weaponized by FBI, and the FBI is weaponized how is, Senator Menendez? How has Senator Menendez, been indicted and found guilty of all these crimes? He's one of the senior senators in Congress, but yet he's been indicted multiple times. By the way, he's gone to trial, and now this conviction will most likely send him to jail. So there's a lot of different, different scenarios. Where I do find that there's problems is when certain FBI leadership, and I think this is more of a systemic of a generational problem, where I see it more now than I did 20 years ago. And I definitely see it at the DOJ, which is, the DOJ is appointed by the President of the United States, the Attorney General, and the Attorney General puts his lawyers and for the most part, in those positions, and they want to push, enforce the agenda of the President of the United States for whatever reason. What I have found is that a lot of times and I found it a lot more common today, and I've talked to other retired agents, and they all agree, many of them agree with me, is that when a case is put forward to them, and when you get to certain levels of high-level crimes, which involve international borderlines and international criminals, or different ways and politics and this, which a lot of the cases which I was involved with, it goes up the chain of command for approvals, and they have to look it over. And a lot of times I've looked it over, and I've seen, especially at DOJ and sometimes at FBI, where they'll look at a case and say, this is a good case. This is a bad person. But if this goes south, how could it hurt me for getting me that next promotion? Let's shelf this, and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. And then they say, okay, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. It's not approved right now, but we'll discuss it in 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, no, we'll shelf this again in 2 weeks. And then that person gets promoted, and then the next person comes into that position, and then they start to look at the proposal, and they'll say, well, I don't want to approve it because that guy that's above me, he didn't approve it. There must be a reason why he didn't approve it, but I'm not going to approve it because I don't want to look bad if there's something that I don't know about. So it's become this chain of reaction of more concerned about the promotion than actually getting the casework done. There's an ASAC that I worked with, and he put it plain and simple. Why are we here at the FBI and FBI? We're here to put bad people in jail. That's it. Simple. Bad people in jail. It has nothing to do with race, creed, religion, political agenda, nothing. Bad people conducting crimes, put them in jail. But yet, some people now worry about their promotions. Well, if this goes bad, I might not get that promotion that I wanted to get. So they've become now more worried about themselves. And I find that has become more common in the last couple of years. I personally was seeing, it personally affected me when one of my cases, and I wanted to move forward with it. And they kept pushing me back, saying, let's talk about this in 2 weeks. Let's talk about this in 2 weeks. Let's talk about this in 2 weeks. So I find that that's the problem these days, is moving a lot of these cases forward has, it's an agenda. People have an agenda. It's not so much about getting bad people. If it's a simple crime, cocaine, purchasing of kilos, sure, that's at the street level. We can get those done. Those get done great. There's great cases in Newark, people embezzling, people money laundering. Those are great cases. But if it's a complicated case, then people start wondering, okay, I might not get that promotion. And I find that people worrying about themselves more than what's the good for the country is very alarming. And that was one
Yeah.
of the reasons. I had many reasons why I decided to exit. I served 29 years. I loved serving my country. But at my anniversary, when I was 20 years in the FBI, I said, it's time to go. And one of the reasons was that moving some of my cases forward, which had international ramifications, nothing that, it would affect governments or anything like that. I was dealing with MS-13 leaders, but on other side of the borders of other countries. And then people started worrying about, oh, I might get a promotion, might not get a promotion. Well, let's not talk about this right now. Then I said, okay, it's time. It's time to go. So, and that to me, I found is one of the problems, especially at DOJ, that people have an agenda. Well, I don't want to do that because I want to get that promotion over there or work for the Biden administration. And the same thing goes when the Trump administration was here. It wasn't as bad, but people have an agenda. And that's why I think it's a generational thing. It's more about this generation now of leaders that are coming in that they need to compete and get the next level. So again, it's not an administration. I see it more now. Maybe it's because it's just older, 5 years later, but that's the thing now. And it's troubling.
Yeah, that's very troubling. Because that doesn't matter if you're in a government agency or if you're in a business place. You're not looking at what's right or wrong anymore. You're looking at what's right or wrong for me.
Correct.
And that doesn't matter. Again, doesn't matter if it's a corporate world, doesn't matter if it's entrepreneurial, doesn't matter if it's government. That is a very bad slope to be on.
Absolutely. And that's the problem, is that slope is going down. I mean, it's only getting worse. And, and one of the things I found is when you just go back 10 years, let's just go back 10 years from now, years ago, there were agents who were, the maximum age for an agent and a special agent in the FBI is 57. That's the max age. It's mandatory retirement. If you want to go past 57, you have to put in 1 year letters. Every year you have to put in for an extension. Whereas 60 was mandatory no matter what, you had to go. 5-10 years ago, you were seeing agents constantly 57, 58, 59, putting in your 1 year letters. You're not seeing that now. You're not seeing agents going 57, 58, 59, unless they have, I have a kid in school who's about to graduate college. I'm not going to bust, I'm not going to, punch out until, they finish their senior year in college. I get that. But the desire, agents 10 years ago were saying, I love this job. I can't wait to stay. I'd love to stay 1 more year. My kids are off to, they're already off, but I'd rather stay here with the Bureau. You're not seeing that anymore. You're seeing people punch out. And I've talked to a lot of agents in multiple divisions who are saying the same thing. I talked to them about my retirement. I talk about, what it's like on this side of the fence. And they're going, I can't wait. I got 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. And they're just like, I can't wait. And that's troubling. That's troubling when you have agents who are saying, I can't wait to punch out. So,
well,
and
when
they
you
love their job.
politicize,
Don't get me wrong. They love their job and they'll continue to do it as the best of their ability.
yeah.
But it's the motives.
Yeah, and when you politicize any organization, again, doesn't matter if it's corporate or governmental. You politicize it, you just ruin the culture.
Well, let me jump in there on that one, because I don't believe the FBI is politicized. Okay, there never ever was at any time in my 20 years at FBI Newark did anyone ever discuss, okay, we need to support this, political party. We need to support this political party. We need to go after this political party. It never happened. And anybody that says that it did happen are liars. And I'll say it to you straight to your face. Anybody that says, well, we were told that this, well, you were a liar, because it never was says, maybe you had a conversation with one other agent, but nobody in FBI Newark chain of command, all the way up to the SAC, ever said it was the exact opposite. We had what was called Hatch training. Okay, the Hatch Act prohibits agents from espousing and supporting a political party as an FBI agent. So in other words, you can't have, pro-Trump bumper sticker on your car. You can't have, we were even told hey, listen, if the neighborhood knows you're an FBI agent, you can't have a political sign in your yard because that's a violation of the Hatch Act. You're a member of the government showing support for a party. You can throw your support behind a party through donations, through things like that, where your name is not attached to the agency. But never was it politicized to the point where, we had, the SAC coming down saying, all right, we need to go after Republicans today. It was never happened. It never happened. And I'll call out anybody that did. That's it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because more people need to know that. What I was referencing in politics wasn't right or left. What I was referencing in politics is playing the game to get to the next spot.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what ruins the culture, not necessarily going right or left, but rather in a corporate culture or government culture, like you mentioned, with instead of doing what's right or wrong, or I'm sorry, doing what's right, instead of thinking about, is this going to cost me a promotion? That's playing the political game.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
And that just ruins culture. All right, so you segued it a little bit already, but you were really proud of your career and happy doing what you're doing, and you made this choice to jump into entrepreneurship. So talk about that transition, because you spent 29 years serving our country, and you're like, hey, I'm going to throw all to the wind and strike off on my own and pursue a dream. And again, for those that make that switch, whether it's government to entrepreneurship or it's corporate to entrepreneurship, it is a world of difference.
Listen, and there's one main reason why I felt comfortable to do this. And I'll tell you how we came to this. 100% it's my wife, Christine. She was 100% the reason why I felt comfortable to do this. She's my best friend, she's my partner, and she's my brother in arms, and we did this together. And I felt the confidence to do this because of her. And the safety and security that, she's incredibly intelligent. She's way smarter than I am. And she was, integral in working for this family fund in the family office in New York City. So when I was approaching retirement in 21, we were thinking, okay, we were going to be moving to Denver. So we hadn't picked on Bozeman. Actually, it was 2019 we were thinking this, because we picked Bozeman in 2020. 2019, 2018, we were thinking about, okay, what's our exit plan? We were already thinking 4 or 5 years in advance. And we were like, because she and I are both cut from the same mold. All right, we don't want to do anything, off the hit. We wanted everything planned out, laid out, so that when retirement day showed up, we hit the ground running. Company's up and running. So we'd never thought about that. We had thought, okay, we're going to move to Denver. I'll get a job with a corporate company in Denver. She's got her. We worked on our master's degrees during COVID, so she has her master's in accountancy, and she earned her CPA at the same time as her master's. So and her forensic examiner, her CPA, CFE. So we had a lot of tools in our bag. We had a lot of possibilities and opportunities. We could have earned a lot of money, in different companies working out of Denver. But we made a decision to come to Bozeman, where there isn't a huge job market. So we had to change our perspective. And one of my good friends, Harry Gray, I have him on the phone, Naval Academy grad, class of 91, and he and I were chatting, and he said, Dan, you have an excellent opportunity. You speak Spanish fluently. Your mom is from Chile, your dad's from Argentina. You have all these contacts that you've established throughout Latin America. I said, why don't you and Christine start a company and be security consultants and forensic accounting consultants for companies in the US that are investing in Latin America? Listen, everybody's investing in Europe. That is a huge market. But an untapped market, which people are starting to realize, is South America. So we found that there would be a lot of push and a lot of need for our security consulting and forensic accounting. When we decided that, we were like, okay, let's start working on it, work on the LLC. So we sat down. I literally self-taught myself. I started talking to people like yourself and different individuals, just getting on Zoom calls. And this is just like 3 years left in my career. I'm still working on this at night, while I'm still working as an agent, learning about things. I'm getting on YouTube. How do you start an LLC? What do I need insurance-wise? All this time, I can't, launch the company because I can't have a second form of income as an FBI agent. So I start thinking about this, and we start building this company, and it's getting great feedback. And we're saying, so Then fast forward, we move up here, we retire. And then Christine has got a great job working as a forensic accountant for a firm out of New Jersey. And I sit back and I look and I'm doing a lot of the Mr. Mom things around house. I wake up early, get the kids off to school and things, and I'm really enjoying that. And I really definitely reprioritized because I looked at it in the model that we built back in 2020, providing security consulting. You need to be in person with people. You need to press the flesh. You need to sit with them in a conference room. You need to talk to them and discuss it. And that would require me being on the road a lot. And my kids are 7 years old at the time. They're 8 now. And I found that I said, I don't want that. I don't want to be. And I set my priority. And at that point, and it always had been, but I really found that my priority was my children. And I said, okay, that model didn't work. So we stopped. Christine and I sat down, and she mentioned one day, she's like, hey, can we create a web page of our website for forensic accounting? I said, why don't we recreate the company and make it a forensic accounting and security consulting firm? You be the CEO, small business, female, woman-owned business, and generate the interest and understand, because she really is the rock star. She really is the brains behind all of this. And we rebranded ourselves, and now we're doing a lot better. I get to sit here and be with the kids a lot more. I do the security consulting. I've got high net value families and things from that are up here, and clients that need security consulting. And I do some side work. I'm a PI here in Montana, so I do some work for law firms up here, interviews, investigations, that sort of thing. But I'm trying to generate more and more interest and more clients, attorneys that are wanting to work with Christine and get her litigation support, because that's what a forensic accountant does. Forensic accountants really support lawyers as they're trying to hunt the money, figure out the money, and then with her CPA, she's able to testify for them. And that's her instant credibility in the courts. So I found that even though our initial creation in 2019 didn't come to fruition, all that work that I did in 2019, 2020, 2021 made it easier for me to shift the company in a different direction right before or right after we had retired. So stepping out on our own, yeah, it's very dangerous. It's risky. We're still trying to find our feet. We're still a year old, but we're still trying to find, gain the momentum, gain the regular clients. But like I said, I wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for Christine. Her experience and my experience, combine the two. I think that we're second to none here in the Valley, here in Bozeman, and we're providing a lot of help for other clients that are not even in Bozeman in Montana. We're helping small clients here in Montana, but we're helping clients in Israel. We're helping clients in Denver and New Jersey. So it doesn't matter. Today's technology affords us the opportunity to do something like this. Get on the phone, and you know what? If something happens, I'll get on a plane for you. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I've set the tone now. I said, I won't take a client that requires me to be away from home for more than 7 days. That's my number, 7 days. If I have to be away from my children for 7 days, I won't take a case. It's not worth it. I won't take the client on. That my children are my priority, unless it's a crisis where there's somebody's in danger, life's in danger, company's in danger. And then of course, yes, I'll put everything aside, come to you with whatever situation as a crisis manager and deal with the situation. But like I said, building that over the last 5 years has been nerve-wracking, no doubt about it. But like I said, working together with her has been, worth every penny.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And the very last thing you said, or not the very last, but one of the last things you said was setting those boundaries. And a lot of people fail to do that, especially in entrepreneurship, because you're just trying to make it. You're just trying to get things going. And by the way, your first 3 years at least will be like a bobber, just trying to stay above water, as I know you've seen already. But it is so worth it in the long run as you continue to get your feet under you and have that freedom and set those boundaries and live the life of your dreams either way. So setting boundaries is crucial, and making sure that you stick to them is even more crucial.
The important thing, and what Harry Gray said to me, way back in the beginning, he goes, you got to find a niche. You got to find something that sets you apart, something that's different. And that for us was the Latin America. And now here it's the security consulting, the forensic accounting. It set that niche, set it apart, but stick to it. Stick to that. Don't be like, oh, well, once you start to flex in different directions, then there's possibility that you going away from that, and then there's your clients that are really depending on you. We're going to see that you get distracted. I'd rather give, and to me, it's not about money. It's not. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to be able to drive a fancy car. I'm here just to be able to get enough money to make some vacations, pay for our ski passes, and things like that. And I'd rather give spectacular service to 6 clients than decent service to 9 clients, but make more money. I'd rather make good money with 6 clients and 6 clients that are happy with me, because my point is having those 6 clients, one's going to go away when my job is done, but they're going to refer me and say, hey, you really should call this guy, because that community, the family offices, the high net worth value families, the community is so tight and so closed that when they talk amongst themselves, this is a trusted person. This is somebody you can trust.
Yeah.
Christine and Dan. It's just the 2 of us here at the company. We don't have others. And that's, for me, that's worth its weight in gold.
100%. And that's what others should be looking for as well. Not taking on any client, but taking on the right clients that identify with you, that fit your ethos and your values, and that you really enjoy working with.
Right.
Because life's too short. And if you're just building a business just to make money, it's not going to be worth it.
Exactly. And I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy, being here with Christine. I share an office with her, and we wake up in the mornings and we, say, what's on the schedule for today? We've got a Zoom call, we got this, we got that. And then, hopefully we get to the point where, now winter is coming in, and then, we're able to, fit in, midday Wednesday ski, head up to Bridger Bowl and ski for the afternoon and be back in time to pick up the kids from school. And that's the joy. That's the joy of working for oneself. And I'm wouldn't trade the last 29 years for anything. I loved doing what I did. And just like any other company, I had good supervisors and I had bad supervisors. But I'm glad that I'm my own supervisor now.
Yeah, me too. I can second that motion. I often joke that I'm unemployable.
Yeah. No,
Only to myself.
yeah, no, I enjoy it. Listen, I like this. I like setting my own tone. I like learning, no doubt about it. I want to learn from other people, learn from how they do certain things, and take that and then learn from somebody else and take that and then just find it and combine it and find it saying, hey, this is how I'm going to operate. This is my ethos. This is my, how I'm going to operate, and embrace that and embrace it and become it and say, this is how I'm going to operate, and move forward. And that's the joy of it, but always opening to learning and understanding new things and different opportunities.
Yeah. So I know we could talk for probably another couple hours, but we should wrap up with, before I ask you my last question, what or where can people find you, or if they want to work with you, how's the easiest way to get in touch or follow you?
Easiest way to get in touch with me is our website, brunnersierragroup.com. And as I stated, I'm on Substack, which is brunnersierragroup.substack, and brunnersierragroup.substack.com, where I do a newsletter. You can sign up for a newsletter. I'm on X as Daniel Brunner, and I'm on LinkedIn, Daniel Brunner itself, and you can find me there. You can easily communicate with me, get a hold of me, and I'm more than happy to help out anybody. And like I said, talk to it. Doesn't matter boundaries. And like I said, I speak Spanish fluently, so I'm helping a lot of people in the Latin community. There's a growing Latin community here in Bozeman because of all the construction and that's going on here. But I'm more than happy to help out anybody else that's out there.
Awesome. Well, make sure to give a follow, reach out. I always ask this at the end. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that you believe most others disagree with you on? And this could be on anything we talked about or didn't talk about.
What's an unpopular belief that I find to be that people don't? Wow.
Unpopular belief you have that you think most others disagree with you on. A hill you die
right
on.
now, the first thing that comes to mind is that we've already talked about this until, we're blue in the face, but the only thing that comes to mind right now is that the FBI is weaponized. And, like I said, I'll defend the FBI until, there's a lot of things that made me unhappy at the FBI. Don't get me wrong about that. But for people to believe that the FBI Director Ray is a good person. Director Ray is a good man. I am also friends with the second in command, who's Deputy Director Paul Abate. He used to be a supervisor of mine. So they're in good hands. It's a good agency. And for people to sit here, and there are certain members of Congress who love to sit there and earn their 15-second soundbite for Twitter and for Instagram and yelling at the deputy director, and no, you don't get to do that. You can. There's nothing wrong. You want your 15 seconds because you have to get reelected, but to believe that there's a grand conspiracy that the FBI was behind January 6th and there were thousands of FBI special agents at the Capitol building, or whether it be, the Democrats believing that, there's secret files and no, it's not a grand conspiracy. Sometimes the easiest answer is the true answer. And people want to create a conspiracy sometimes. And I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't espouse to that. For me, a lot of the facts are there's a lot of scary stuff that's been happening out there. No doubt about it. Have there been false flag operations in the past? Absolutely. There have been false flag operations that happened in our past. But not everything is a conspiracy. As soon as you see, looking at right now, hurricane, people believing that the weather was controlled by the government. No, come on. Really? Are we wasting time on that? So those are the things I try to sit here but here's the thing that's what's great about this country. Okay. People are allowed to believe that. You can believe what you want to believe. You want to, be who you want to be behind your doors. Go for it. Don't break the law. Don't break the law. If you break the law, you should get arrested. So I'm of the belief that saying, listen, you believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe that the earth is flat, great. Believe the earth is flat. Nobody's stopping you. But like I said, that's what's great about this country. And what we touched on earlier was that, when we start controlling, then when we start saying you can't think something, or you want to arrest somebody because of the thought, or when we stop having conversations, that's when bad things happen. And we need to continue, even if you disagree. Hey, listen, you believe what you want to believe? Okay, sure, great. Tell me why you believe it. You're not going to change my mind, but I want to hear what you want to say. That's your opinion. This is my opinion. Great. Let's talk about it. We have to have conversations. And like you were saying, you touched earlier, these two sides are polarized. We have to win. And it gets very dangerous at that point when we're saying we have to win. Doesn't matter what they say. Doesn't matter what they say. So it's not so much black and white. It is black and white now, but it just needs to be, we need to put a pause. We need to pull the reins back a little bit. So
yeah, and actually come together. I totally agree on that. The conspiracy thing though, I'll just say that if they wouldn't lie to us, like that head of Secret Service, it'd leave a lot less room for conspiracies.
100% agree. And that's where it's just, where I was sitting there and when she was saying that, I'm like, oh boy, people are going to have a field day with this one, of these memes, everything like that. And once you put a meme out there, then people start to believe those Instagram posts and Snapchats and things like that. You're just like, oh boy. So, whether it be a ghost bus, which one congressman says the ghost buses, and, that the FBI bust in agents using a ghost bus and ghost cars. And it's just like, oh my God, really? So, but you know what? Constituents voted them in. And those people are allowed to believe what they want to believe. So
that's right.
It's freedom. Well, it's what's great about this country.
It is. And it makes it entertaining as well. Yep. But this has been a great conversation, Daniel. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for pouring into the audience. Spartan audience, you know what to do. Share this episode far and wide. We covered a lot of things, and he's got a wealth of knowledge from his experience and service to our country. And we'll have to get into some more of the cybersecurity stuff in the future, Daniel, because I know that's a growing threat for a lot of businesses. And so we'll have to have another conversation.
Check out my website. I put out the intel briefs. I'm glad to come back on. I would love to come back on with you and we sit and chat about other stuff and different AI frauds and stuff like that. So I'd love to.
Awesome. Well, Spartans, you know what to do. Remember, the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.
This is Sparta!